safe streets, vibrant neighborhoods, successful business and commerce. These are things that make a healthy community. We are a diverse community, rural, suburban, urban, a multitude of languages and ethnicities, ages and experiences. We are a collaborative community. Public-private partnerships make us a model community that others want to follow. It is what makes us unique. It is what makes us strong. The employees of Kent County reflect our diversity and seek to serve our communities.
People in this county, in this area, we wrap our arms around each other. We come together to collaborate, to solve problems. We're all working for the good of the whole. And I think that's wonderful. And you can see it. You can see it as you drive around Kent County.
Our impact starts the day a baby is born and a birth certificate is issued, to protecting children from deadly diseases through vaccination, to the public safety and justice provided by law enforcement and the courts, to offering veterans services and caring for the elderly. Every day we work to keep our communities robust.
I think if you are somebody who is interested in serving your community, in building a strong knowledge base and a good group of people to work with, then the county is one of your best employment opportunities out there. It's been completely rewarding in every way I could possibly explain for 26 years, and I feel like I grow every single day still today.
Leading these dedicated employees are 19-member Board of Commissioners and our County Administrator Controller, along with our elected officials and appointed department directors, placing emphasis on civic involvement, quality housing, vibrant neighborhoods, and strong, solid infrastructure to allow businesses to thrive. Professional, dedicated, collaborative, and innovative.
Behind the scenes, collaboration between foundations, charitable organizations, nonprofits, for-profit businesses, public sector demonstrated through the county, the city of Grand Rapids, the townships, all the cities and the villages in our area. If we don't come together, then we will not have the strength that we have today, and I only hope to build upon that.
Our aim is to make our communities the best they can be. We are involved in exciting development projects, sustainable recycling programs, and creative progressive prevention programming. We partner with elected officials, impacting policy ideas that become great achievements. We seek opportunities to reach out into the community and offer our services to help our residents make Kent County thrive.
Our relationship is solid, both from a staff standpoint at the county level as well as the Board of Commissioners. And they understand what we do and the benefits that we can do for the community, and vice versa. We couldn't do what we do without the help of Kent County.
While most of us are busy running our lives, Kent County's elected officials, administrator controller, and over 1,600 employees are serving the communities where we live our lives, so we can all have a place we are proud to call home. Kent County, its life well run.
Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to Tuesday, November 7th, 8:30 for the Finance and Fiscal Resources Committee. I'd like to welcome my fellow commissioners, guests, and other team members we have in the audience. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come down to Kent County, and good, nice warm welcome for those at home or other places that are watching us when this gets recorded. So we will start with public comment. Is there any public that would like to make a comment this morning? Please come up to the podium and state your name and your address.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Nielsen, 14130 Keller Northeast, Spencer Township, and it's a Cedar Springs mailing address. And I'm here this morning as the chair of the Kent County Senior Millage Committee. This will represent the 20th package of recommendations that we brought to this group, so my face should probably be familiar to you. We're here obviously to support the two agenda items dealing with the millage that you have on your agenda today, the amendment to the current budget and of course our 2018 recommended allocations. I'm joined this morning, as you know, the county has a contract with the Area Agency on Aging of Western Michigan to administer the millage, and I'm joined this morning by Jackie O'Connor, the Executive Director of the agency, and Ann Ellermitz, the Director of Contract Services and Program Development. And I would also like to introduce to you Dr. Jim Byrne, the gentleman here, thanks Jim, as the vice chair of the committee. Jim has been a member of our committee since 2002. He retired 2-3 years ago as the medical director of Priority Health, and at that time we grabbed a chunk of his newfound spare time so that he could serve as vice president. He's been our vice chair, and he's been a real asset. This year we had over $360,000 new dollars, which made it really, really nice. Many of you who are alumni of our process will recall during some lean years, and the kindest thing we could do was not cut programs, so it's a lot nicer now. We gave increases where warranted, but we also decided to fund 3 new programs this year. The first one at Home Repair Services is called Smart Money University, and it will provide classes and workshops and things like scams and fraud, home-based technology, and aging in place. A new agency, Senior Advisory Services, will provide daily money management. It's a program geared to folks who don't really need a legal guardian or a conservator, but maybe some help in writing checks, balancing their checkbook, wading through all their insurance explanation of benefits and things like that. So it's a newly identified critical niche in our community. And last, we'll be funding some of the staffing at the Senior Center at St. Alphonsus Catholic Church, which is a very fine multi-purpose center which serves clients in the Creston neighborhood. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge your colleagues and associates who serve on the committee with us. They literally put their lives on hold. Many of you know this. Put your lives on hold that middle week in October when we meet with all the providers. And this year you are represented on the committee by Stan Steck, Matt Coleman, Carol Hennessy, former Commissioner Art Tanis, who really never left. He left you, but he never left us. And this year, new on the staff, and Matthew Van Zetten is new on our committee, replacing Wayman, who had been our staff person. I have to say, we love having Matthew with us, but we miss you, Wayman. So, thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment, and I will go to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Is there a second?
Support.
You. The items have to be pulled from the consent agenda. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll go to item 3 from the Administrator's Office.
This is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to approve the 2018 General Appropriation Act as the official budget for 2018. It is the responsibility of the County Administrator Controller to prepare an annual operating and capital improvement program budget for the county, and the 2018 budget has been submitted to the Finance and Fiscal Resources Committee for review. Pursuant to state statute, a public hearing on the proposed budget will be held on November the 9th, 2017, and the appropriate public notice was published. The Board of Commissioners reviewed the 2018 budget in detail. Estimated total appropriations for the various fund types are proposed as follows. A general fund appropriation of $172,335,000. A special revenue funds appropriation of $70,962,000. A capital projects fund appropriation of $8,017,000, for a total of $251,315,000. Kent County voters authorized millages of 0.7859 mills for correction detention facility operations and debt services, 0.4978 mills for senior services, 0.438 mills for zoo museum operations, and 0.0497 mills for veteran services, which have been used for the basis of preparing the 2018 budget. In May 2018, the Board of Commissioners will be requested to authorize a general property tax levy of 4.2803 mills on real and personal property within the county upon the current tax roll to support county general operations in 2018. The request includes the addition of 11.62 FTE positions, which includes 5 road patrol, 4 corrections, 1 district court security person, 1 parks, and 1 part-time probate court positions. And this will be these are recommended by the Legislative and Human Resources Committee at its September 12, 2017 meeting.
Thank you, Norman. Is there a motion?
So moved.
To approve. Okay, we are moved and we are supported. Questions, comments, and discussion? Yes, Commissioner Voorhees.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I came to this meeting prepared to amend the resolution to reduce the 2018 General Appropriation Act, thereby reducing the property tax on Kent County's families and businesses. It was stated that to do this at this point in the budget process would not give administration or my fellow members time to properly address the issue. I now request that we look at the 2019 proposed budget and General Appropriation Act, and I have come to the conclusion a tax cut at the county is attainable and needed, and I will continue to pursue this in the next year or, if it so be, the next term. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the budget? Yes, Commissioner Talon.
Go ahead, Jim, I'll wait for you.
Thank you, Chair Jones. I'd like to offer a few reflections on it. I want to begin by acknowledging that putting this budget together is a significant effort. I recognize that our staff put a ton of work into it at many levels, and I sincerely appreciate that. This is the 17th budget that I voted on. Somewhat surprisingly, or maybe not, it's pretty much remained the same. The Commission adopts a few broad parameters, primarily to be frugal, not spend any of the ample fund balance, and the administrator works with departments to bring their budgets in line with the overall constraints. And the Commission generally rubber stamps the effort. I've joked many times when talking with people about Kent County that our primary mission is to maintain a AAA bond rating. We are quite good at that. I wish we were as good at maintaining a low infant mortality rate instead of one of the worst in the state. I wish we were as good at protecting vulnerable families from the devastating effects of lead paint. Instead, I have to read on MLive just yesterday that the problem continues to get worse every year in our community, including last year. I wish that people who don't have a car could easily get to the gem of our county park system, Millennium Park. I need to say that over the years, I've become increasingly frustrated with our budget process. But while we typically allow ample time to understand the budget, there's precious little opportunity to actually affect it once it's been proposed by staff. The only time we can really offer motions to change the budget is today. The way the process is set up, there's hardly enough time to implement any changes we might decide on today and then get the revised budget out for the public hearing less than 48 hours from now. And what if there's feedback at that public hearing? Ideas that commissioners feel should be incorporated in the final budget. Is there time for this committee to consider feedback, to direct staff, and then vote on changes before adoption by the full board? It's possible, but barely. So I would encourage us to spend time after this budget is eventually approved, considering whether or not this is the way we really want to do budgets in the future. Do we want the budgets to be staff-driven, or do we want them to be community and commissioner-driven? You all have heard me talk about some of my priorities, and I frankly don't see them reflected in this budget. I'd like to see us set aside money for parkland acquisition. I've been asking for that for at least 5 years now, and I don't think I'm the only one. I'd like to see an increase in our investment in early childhood development. We know that it pays huge dividends, but the amount we allocated has been stagnant for years now. I'd like to see funding that incentivizes outcomes, not services. For example, how are the staff and programs we fund at the courts and the jail diverting people from entering the system who don't really need to be there, and for those who do need to be there, making sure that they have what they need to keep from coming back? At this point in the process, it's not very practical to offer amendments along any of these lines. But there really wasn't a place to offer them along the way either. Work sessions are not appropriate times to vote on specific budget changes. I think we need to spend more time talking about specific priorities, not just broad parameters, at the very front end of the budget process. That makes much more sense to me than the way we do it now. That assumes, of course, that we actually are interested in the input of all commissioners and the public. Are we? If we are we willing to look at our process to see if we can do it better, to incorporate that input? Are we willing to survey commissioners for their thoughts about the process? Are we willing to ask the public what they think about it? Are we willing to ask frontline staff for their input? I kind of feel like our budget process is pretty old school. In my readings and my travels around the country, the most effective government operations are staff-driven and citizen-directed. Think about that. Staff do the driving, but citizens, and I include commissioners as citizens do the steering. Can we possibly imagine citizens and commissioners steering our budget process? I leave that thought for us to consider, to chew on, to hopefully stimulate some further conversation, also along the lines of Commissioner Voorhees. And rest assured, just like him, you'll be hearing from me about this again in the near future. So thanks for your time.
Mr. Morgan.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm here just to point out some of the things that I've observed during this process, and I'm one that kind of takes offense to the rubber stamp issue. I've always delved into the budgets. I've always understood the budgets, and I think it's my fiduciary responsibility to my electors to vote on their behalf. So here we have two commissioners, one that wants to reduce spending and one that wants to increase spending. That's why we have a process. And I believe that this process protects us from going off the rails. Now, if we had an unlimited budget and we had unlimited revenues, I'd be all for reducing expenses, reducing revenues, whatever we need to do. But the fact of the matter is, we're at 2009 revenue levels. Think about that. I was chair in 2009. We're just getting back to 2009 revenue levels. So as we worked through the process, I attended some budget work sessions. I thought we had some very good discussions on where we wanted this budget to go. And I think there is a process to implement it in subsequent finance committee meetings. So I think the process is there. And once again, I really take offense to the rubber stamp comment, because I never felt that when I tore into that budget that I was just rubber stamping a budget. So as we get together and we try to look at all of the issues and all the challenges that this county faces, it's one thing to remember that we only have so much money. Now, if we want to set our priorities, or we want to do some things differently as far as how we want to address those issues, I'm all for that. But I'm not here after 17 years trying to destroy a process that I think has been very helpful. Thank you.
Commissioner Womack.
Yes, I'd like to be brief, and I'll start with some of the things that have happened in my first tenure that I've seen this commission and our departments come together and our Kent County employees help put together that I'm very proud of. And our support of the Veterans Court, of course, Tom Antor and his work on with our veterans more closely, in Kent County being announced one of the first counties to have, homelessness, zero homelessness for veterans, that we have options for them. Also, the mental court that has come, the election equipment that's being updated and brought to this century finally. So those are some of the things that happened over the year that I've been very proud to be a part of this commission. I was elected to this commission at the end of 2016 and started in 2017. From 2015 to 2017, we have a 40% increase in lead poisoning being detected in one of the zip codes that I represent, the 49507 zip code. The Lead Task Force reports back to us on their findings after our process for allocated funds for 2018 through 2019, which doesn't really give us time to appropriate any funds to help with that situation. So it almost seems that even for the county and state and federal level to get the assistance Grand Rapids is going to need, it would almost take a public health emergency declaration, probably something short of a state of emergency, but it is almost a state of emergency when one zip code has more lead poisoning than the whole city of Flint. So that's something that I think we have to be proactive on in the upcoming years. And I just wish we had time to figure some of that into our budget for 2018, 2019. But I've been very proud to be a part of this process here with Kent County in my first year. So I'm still learning some, but I'm very happy to be a voice for the 49507. And I want everybody to keep that in mind as we continue on with our governmental processes. Thank you.
Just a quick comment. Just to make sure everyone knows, the Lead Task Force is almost complete with their report. And thank you, Commissioner Womack, for your comments regarding that. The 49507 zip code is very important to me. So as they get through that process and we identify ways in which to deal with the lead paint issue, of course, we will be responsive to that. And I don't know what the outcome will be, but we will hear from the Lead Task Force at some time. Stuart Southfield set that committee up, and really pleased with the work that Emily Breavy and the team, Sunita Lanier from the City of Grand Rapids. So we're looking forward to reacting to that when it comes out.
Okay. I have one question. If it comes out that we have to add funds, do you know what budget that would come out of?
The social welfare or health budget, those are the budgets that I think of. But of course, we'll have to see what the recommendations are. There may be other funds from the state that we can pull in as well. So we'll just have to wait and see what that report says.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, I think when we start bringing up examples of where we're failing quotation marks, because we're now ranked really badly, it's because we're looking for lead harder than anybody else, and we're going to find more because we're actually looking for it. It's similar to chronic wasting disease, which I always default to back with the deer herd here in Michigan. We're finding it all over the place now because it's the first time ever we started looking for it. So even though Michigan's ranking really low, we've got all this disease, it's because we're out there actively looking for it and trying to address the problem. I think the same thing you could apply to a lot of this stuff. We're maybe more active than other counties. Yeah, our numbers are going to reflect that. Yeah, we have a lot of lead problems, but we're out there trying to get ahead of it. And that's the only thing I'd like to say about that. We'll see how this all comes out, but I don't think it's because of lack of diligence. I think it's more of a cause of our due diligence. Thank you.
Commissioner Hennessy.
I've appreciated the comments made by my fellow commissioners this morning, and I think it's just I sort of take it that we, need to sit down again and review how we're going about this whole thing. And it comes to me that it's really been a few years since we did have a strategic planning committee meetings where you sit there and think about what the priorities are going to be for Kent County going forward, and that it might be time to go back, and that would be a starting point for making some of the changes that other commissioners are looking at here, and still being respectful of the process that's been, but interjecting some new aspects to this process on the basis of what are our priorities now. And it's been a while since that's been done. May not have been done since you joined the commission, Diane, good chair. So when it comes to the lead task force, I'm on that committee, and we are nearing a finalization on the report, but we've not been sitting still. We've already applied for a significant grant from the state of Michigan, and that is really moving very, very forward. And Emily Greavy, Commissioner Greavy, at the next meeting can give a broader report, but we're going to be going into the community and talking to the community by the end of November. So this is really it's been a very responsive type of process, but this is where you also want our processes to be responsive and to be able to react and act immediately to address whatever budget needs may be coming down the pike on this one.
Commissioner Womack, you have a follow-up? It's all right, go ahead.
Yes. When it comes to get the lead out and me becoming a public official and being around a lot of public officials, it kind of takes me to a chapter in my life. There was a time in my life where my resume wasn't very good because there were things that I accepted as normal in my life or maybe blamed on my environment, and I decided to change my life, so I had to do a self-evaluation and say I had to do some major changes if I wanted to change, not only change my life, but be a better example for my nephews and the children in our community that were becoming fodder for the prison system. And I understood at my age, my mentorship was not where it was supposed to be. So I changed my life. When I look at lead, and I ran upon the issue of lead in my community, because knocking on every door, and maybe 1 in every 3 or 4 was mentioning their problems with funding to get lead out of their houses, or their neighbors having those problems. A commissioner at that time in Kent County that's no longer here, but was serving at that time, said lead was not a county issue. And the lead task force that begins in September 2016, and we're looking at what we've done this year, I just have to say we just have to beat up on ourselves and not be afraid to say we can do a better job. And when I've lived in many municipalities in the United States of America, and when I came back to Grand Rapids, I was always complaining about some of the behavior I saw in some of the children in the school system. And I've been into communities with more poverty than Grand Rapids, Michigan. There was certain things that once I started reading about lead and the effects of lead, that I was able to see, not being a doctor, but I see and feel this effect in the 49507 zip code. So I think everybody's doing a great job with the lead task force, but I do think that there's no reason. I know Paul Hahn has been talking about this way back 2008, 2009. We interviewed him on the radio. So I don't know why it took the county to 2016 to get a lead task force. And I'm not beating up on the county, because one thing I do, I got less complaints since I started working here with the county, because you're doing a magnificent job. I see departments doing a lot of work. But there are areas where we can do better. And get the lead out is something I believe we can do better.
Commissioner Mask?
Well, I just want to, I guess react to one of my fellow commissioner comment about infant mortality rate is the lowest in the state. I don't think that's the case anymore. That was the case some time back. And when I served on the Community Health Advisory Committee, we really attacked that and dedicated some money from the county. I think we just recently heard from Adam London that we have significantly improved the infant mortality rate. both African American and minorities, as well as, I think that's where it was really the lowest. I don't think that's the case anymore, because we did dedicate some funds to it a decade ago or so, and we have really attacked it. So I think I want to correct the record on that basis.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll go to the next item on the agenda, item 4 from the Administrator's Office, the senior millage allocations for 2018. Wayman?
Yes, this is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to allocate $11,113,000 in senior millage funds for 2018, as recommended by the Area Agency on Aging of Western Michigan, to approve the agreement for administration of senior millage services with AAA Western Michigan, and to authorize the board chair designate to execute the agreement. The AAA of Western Michigan holds contracts with 30 agencies to provide services with funding from Kent County senior millage. Under the terms of the contracts, the funding level is evaluated annually based on new program proposals, current year projections, and available funding. In early October 2017, the Kent County Senior Millage Review Committee evaluated 2018 funding request and made recommendations regarding funding for each service. These recommendations were forwarded to the AAA Western Michigan Executive Committee on October 23, 2017, which is now recommending them to the county for approval. The county proposes to enter into an agreement with AAA of Western Michigan to serve as the senior millage administrative entity for development, coordination, implementation, administration of the service delivery system for millage-funded programs for senior citizens. In addition to the annual contracts for service delivery and administration, senior millage funds will also be used to provide in-home services, prescription assistance, flu, pneumonia, shingles, and vaccination, and emergency needs funding to seniors through the purchase of service arrangements. Amounts to be allocated through this process have been included on the bid tabulation and recommendation sheet. Assistant Corporate Counsel has reviewed and approved the Senior Millage Administrative Services Agreement as to form.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there support? Okay. Questions, comments? Commissioner Mass.
I just, continue to be amazed at how well this works. How well we've, some years ago decided to contract with AAA West Michigan. They've got good staff there, and they've got a good committee. We've got good commissioners who are willing to serve on it. I've served on it for some period of time. So it just works so well, I think, very efficiently.
Commissioner Hennessy?
Thanks.
I like the way in which, this was, I think, my 9th year being on this particular committee. And this is sort of service-driven, in that you have your priority services, making sure that seniors can get to medical appointments, making sure that there is food for them to eat through senior meals. Then you have the supportive services for people, and it just goes down. So it really is service-driven, and every year this committee goes through and looks and talks to every single one of these agencies over 3 8 to 5 type days, and takes the staff recommendations and then puts its own ideas together. Nancy Nielsen, who's led it all the years I've been on it since it began, I believe, does a fine job of allowing everyone their say, putting all of the ideas together. It is a citizen-led effort, supported by staff that does very intensive reviews of each agency. And I do think it is a good model to be followed, but it really is one that provides an example of how you prioritize the services, and the services are really very citizen-driven at this point.
Thank you. Commissioner Morgan?
Well, this is one of these processes that was established a long time ago, and I must say that somebody had their head on straight, because this is services driven and not politically driven. So somebody was wise beyond their years to make sure that we have a contract to make sure that we can get this done. And I just really commend their work, and thank you for taking the politics out of this. So
Commissioner Voorhees.
I will save my remarks for the full board, but do appreciate very much the team that works at AAW to make this happen. Thank you.
Commissioner Womack.
Yes, I just would like to add that I appreciate the work on the senior millage budget. I also appreciate working with commissioners that nonpartisan agree with us prioritizing our seniors and our veterans.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. That brings us to item 5, Department of Health and Human Services, 2018 current unmet needs funding. Wayman?
This is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to allocate $382,476 in funding from Human Services programs as recommended by the Department of Health and Human Services, the DHS Board. The Board of Commissioners annually appropriates funds to the Department of Health and Human Services to be awarded by the DHS Board following a review of proposals submitted by various community or social service agencies. Programs included in the current unmet needs category are those agencies and programs that annually receive assistance due to an absence of other funding sources, their ability to leverage significant other resources, or are in support of a cooperative effort of multiple funding sources. The 2018 recommendation includes $318,400 to fund 15 programs for current unmet needs.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Questions, comments, and discussion? Yes, Commissioner Coleman.
Is this, the funds, is it Michigan Fiscal 2018 funds? Okay.
Yes. This is from the county. These
Yes.
are coming out of the county
This is
general
what the
fund.
county does, the
appropriation.
general fund.
Oh, it's just,
Yeah.
So your answer to him
So
should be
it's-
no.
so it's
Not-
a
not Michigan, not-
2017 county fund allocation.
No, it's a 2018 budget allocation,
Okay.
not from
Out
the
of county
state,
funds.
but from county.
All
Out of our
right.
general
Sorry
fund.
for getting that all confused. Thank you.
Sorry, I misunderstood your question.
No
Commissioner
problem.
Morgan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Chair, I'm sorry. This is another one of these projects that the county has done out of our general fund that you don't see everywhere around the state. And what I'm seeing is, I think our allocation has stayed pretty steady, Wayman, but the requests have seemed to come down a little bit.
Partly because, of course, there aren't the dollars that we used to have
Right.
back when the program got started years ago. It was almost $1,300,000. I remember when I was on the DHS board at the time. So, yeah, the dollars have ratcheted down because of the economic conditions that we've been facing over
So
the last 10, 15 years.
we've been able to maintain this project at a certain, a
Yes.
program at a certain
For the
level,
last
even
4 or
though.
5 years, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hennessy?
I am curious, how do you make programs aware that this is an opportunity that is out there for them? And then how do how do we review the use of the funds? I'm used to the senior millage and the review of the use of the funds. How do we do all that here?
Matthew, would you like to come up and address Commissioner Hennessy's question?
Good morning, Commissioner Hennessy. To answer your question, the funds are posted, the RFP is obviously posted on the Access Kent website, and providers that have received funds before and others that have sought proposals before or solicited, we definitely make sure that they're reached out to. We also send out an email from DHHS to the broader community to let them know that the posting's been made on Access Kent. In terms of the review process, the DHS board, along with staff from DHS and one person from the administrator's office, this year it was Sandra Ghostin Jones, reviews the proposals and goes over what we receive. But due to the fact that there hasn't been more money for a long time, many of the services have remained the same because they're glue services, if you will. They're systemic services to ensure that we have a homeless response service or we have a 211 system or some of the basic infrastructure pieces. So that provide you an overview. Happy to answer any other questions. So.
I'll throw one at you, Matthew. Is there a process to circle back on what happened the prior year? Do you get that as part of the application process?
Yeah, we get 2 reports during the year as to what's been going on with the program, as well as when they respond, they have to go through a committee process with the DHS board and others to find out, to be interviewed, what happened. So, yep.
Great. Commissioner Talon?
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment, and that's to express appreciation for this process, which in my mind is similar to the senior millage process, similar to the veterans process, where people who are immersed in the work do the review, make the recommendations based on that experience to the board, which gives them a lot of weight. So I appreciate that we're also doing that through the DHHS board in this case.
Commissioner Voorhees?
Thank you, Chair. When it states here that a gross interest savings of approximately $817,000 over the remaining life of the indebtedness.
You got that wrong.
We're not there yet.
Oh,
You're getting ahead of us.
We're on unmet
Yeah,
needs.
that's the story of my life. I'm always ahead of it.
Sorry, Harold, I just thought I would help you out.
I got to back up one here.
Okay, anyone else on the unmet needs?
Still on
Okay,
that.
seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. That moves us to item 6 from the Department of Public Works, Kent County Refuse Disposal System Refunding Bonds Series 2017. Raymond.
This is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to authorize the issuance of Kent County Refuse Disposal System Refunding Bonds, Series 2017. In 2009, the county authorized $11.8 million in refuse disposal system revenue bonds with the limited tax general obligation pledge of the county to fund the acquisition, construction, and equipping of a material recovery facility in the city of Grand Rapids as part of the county's refuge disposal system, which in addition to that project includes the South Kent landfill located in the township of Byron and the North Kent transfer station located in the charter township of Plainfield. The proposed resolution will authorize a bond issuance in the amount not to exceed $7.8 million of Series 2017 refunding bonds, pledge of the county's limited full faith and credit on the bonds, the form of the bonds, granting the authority to the Fiscal Services Director to enter into a bond purchase agreement, cause the preparation of an official statement, and authorize the execution of all other documents as necessary to close the issuance of the proposed bond refinancing. Based on tax-exempt interest rates as of October 24, 2017, it is estimated that the issuance of refunding bonds will generate a gross interest savings of approximately $817,000 over the remaining life of the indebtedness. The net present value savings is estimated at $698,000, which is equivalent to 9.84% of the refunded par. Staff anticipates closing on the refunding bonds in December 2017, contingent upon an acceptable present value savings.
Is there a motion to approve?
Support.
Moved and supported. So questions, comments, and discussions. Commissioner Voorhees.
Thank you, Chair Jones. My question is on that third dot there. I'd like to know the time span of this really $700,000 savings, and what is the impact of that to the general fund?
That was my question, Harold.
No way, I got it. Hey, good morning, Steve.
So I didn't hear your question, Harold, I was walking up.
Yeah, the time span that we will experience this $700,000 savings, is that over so many years?
This
And then
bondage
the-
was paid off in 2029, so it's over that period of time that we will experience.
12-year.
Yeah, on a gross basis, we're expecting to recover $817,000. On a present value, it's about $698,000, discounting it back to today.
And so what is that impact to our general fund expenses?
These are
All
just
staying.
DPW bonds that will save them some money over the next 10, 11 years.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioner Coleman.
So I think that answered one of my questions. The term is the same. It ends in 2029?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then secondly, you know me, I'm cautious about any debt issuance, but I'm also part Dutch, so I like the savings part.
You're really conflicted, aren't you, Matt?
So 698 savings, what is the cost of issuance?
Cost of issuance is just under 102,000, but remember, these are all estimates. Generally, we do at least that or a little better, but about 102,000 for that.
Okay.
And what you need to realize, that's rolled into the bond issue, so when I quote these savings, that's after that cost.
Okay, so 698 is already net
Yeah.
the issuance cost. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Morgan?
Well, the Irish side of me says to take advantage of this every chance you get the opportunity to do it. But these bonds are covered by the enterprise fund, the DPW, correct?
Yes, the revenue bonds paid for by the DPW, they do require our full faith and credit to keep the interest rate low as possible.
I just appreciate the fact that we're able to refinance some of these bonds and get a lower rate.
Commissioner Talon?
Thank you, Chair. Don't we have some sort of acceptable present value savings goal, or isn't there a number that we usually say?
Yeah,
if we're above
we
that?
usually target,
Target, thank you.
5% of the refunded bonds. And right now, we're estimating just under 10%. And I'm hoping we will hit 10% when we actually get to market.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor,
Aye.
please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. That brings us to item 7 from the Parks. Wayman?
This is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to approve the grant of an easement to Consumers Energy for an overhead electric line and to authorize the board chair or designee to sign the easement. Consumers Energy has requested the county to grant an easement for the installation, operation, and maintenance of an overhead electric line crossing the driveway into Kent Trails parking lot of 84th Street Southwest to allow for enhanced electric service to an adjacent business. The line will be owned and maintained by Consumers Energy and will not interfere with public access to Kent Trails. There will be no cost to the county associated with granting the requested easement. The easement has been reviewed and approved as to form by interim corporate counsel. So moved.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
Okay. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, yes,
Sorry,
Commissioner
one quick
Coleman?
question. Is it just one particular adjacent business, or is it for future and expansion in that area as well?
Yes, it is a line directly to a brewery that is being established next to our parking lot. They need some extra service.
Okay, in that old Byron Inn right there in the trails.
Anything else?
Be a nice place.
Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. That brings us to Commissioner Miscellaneous. Is there any Commissioner Miscellaneous this morning? Yes, Commissioner Voorhees?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just read or heard a little bit about a proposed plan to stop drivers who may be under influence of drugs and for quick testing. You know, we came out of this thing of that we had the task force on the deadbeat dad thing. I'm just concerned. I don't want to see our state, or especially our county, move into a position where maybe some of you have been in countries where you pop over the hill and there's a police set up and you're going to get stopped. Under, I think, our present laws, there has to be a visual action of a problem. Do we know, is this being looked at, Michelle?
Why don't we have our undersheriff, who is here for the meeting, Michelle Young, address that for Commissioner Voorhees and the
Thank you.
Finance Committee?
Good morning. There's a large amount of misunderstanding in what's been talked about. There is no change. There's not going to be any checkpoints, and you're right, under Michigan law, that's not admissible, or we can't do it. So what this program is, it's a pilot program that will allow different testing to be done when there is a suspicion, a probable cause has already been established that somebody is impaired. And so they're able to do some roadside testing for that. It's not anything different than that. It doesn't change our process in any other way, except for it allows an additional way to detect that somebody's under the influence of drugs.
Thank you.
Trying to make it more similar to the stop that would happen if you're under the influence of alcohol.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Yes, Commissioner Hennessy.
While you're there, are they going to be taking saliva samples from the people that they are questioning? That was something that I noticed coming up in some conversations yesterday.
So yeah, that is what the plan is, but it's after probable cause has been established. It's not just, hey, do you mind giving us a sample? It's, well, we have a reason to believe. They do the sobriety testing, and now they are able to take a sample and have it tested. Again, they're trying to drive to the point where there is roadside testing available on a broad spectrum for being under the influence of drugs. Right now, we haven't really gotten to that point, law enforcement, yet. Nationwide, it's not just in Michigan, but nationwide, we haven't gotten to that point yet. So they're doing a pilot test to establish, can we detect the presence in the roadside in a reliable way? It would be backed up with actual blood tests that would happen on somebody being charged.
Do you have a follow-up, Commissioner Hennessy?
Do you have to give a saliva sample on the spot?
You could probably refuse.
I mean, well, and what happens to this sample? I mean, it has all kinds of DNA information as well.
Well, there's DNA information in a lot of things. So what happens to the sample is it's sent for testing. Yes, you do have to comply if they have gotten to the point where there's probable cause to believe you're under the influence. If you refuse, then we'll do a search warrant and do a blood draw at the hospital. Those are your choices. But again, this isn't just anybody who's driving along and they make a mistake in a traffic situation. This is where they've established through sobriety testing that there's reason to believe somebody's under the suspicion of a controlled substance. No different than what we do for, a breathalyzer test on the street.
Okay, Commissioner Womack?
Yes. Commissioner Hennessy brought up something that I was interested in knowing, and she brought up the DNA. What are the legalities of these saliva tests being used for DNA and kept on record for somebody for DNA?
That's not legal. It's not happening. It's not being drawn out of that sample. It is specifically being taken for the presence of a controlled substance. There are DNA tests that happen after you're actually incarcerated, and we do that as part of our process too. Those are mandated by law, but in this context, that DNA is not derived from the sample.
Okay.
Commissioner Antwer?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so if I understand this correctly, this is just nothing more than the new age. This is like a PBT.
Correct.
It's just it screens a different problem because the culture's changing.
Yep.
This is the new beer, sort of.
Exactly. And again, I can't emphasize enough, they're testing, it's a pilot test, because they're trying to get to a point in application where they have it locked in to this actually does detect the presence. This is a reliable standard. This does meet up with tests. There's a long way to go on this. We are not ready for prime time on this type of testing law enforcement-wide yet. I think you're going to see more pilot tests happening before we get to that point.
I think there's a narrative being put out there that some of this other stuff you can drive and still, not be impaired, and I think that's a false narrative, I think. And that's not from firsthand knowledge, but,
right.
I think it's really important. I'm glad the county's doing it because we got to keep impaired people off the streets. Every day we read about families getting wiped out, and for what, and anything we can do, at least put the fear out there. People are going to be less inclined. Let them get a Uber or whatever. I think that's one of the things too, is get, designated drivers in any situation, whether you're
every
drinking.
Situation.
Yeah.
I have two comments to that. One is there's a good reporting mechanism out there. It's called the Rocky Mountain Report. It is based on some of the real life statistics from legalization of marijuana in Colorado, and also refers back to Washington. And it has shown that operating under the influence of marijuana is very serious, and their fatal accidents almost doubled in the period of time that it has been legal in Colorado. So if you think that driving under the influence of marijuana is safer, because I know a lot of young people do think that, it isn't. And the other point is, our participation in pilot programs as an agency is really important because they count on agencies like ours to test it. Agencies who have solid processes and we make good, solid decisions, and you're able to factor out a lot of the lack of professionalism, if you will, in the results. So that's why Kent County Sheriff's Department does participate in pilot projects. It's important for the profession. It's important for our communities.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes, I would just, first of all, I'd like to thank Wayman and Duarte and Marvin for taking all my phone calls through this budget process. I appreciate it. And yeah, I don't have a question for you. So I do appreciate staff taking the time to answer my questions. I know that I think Marvin got really tired of talking to me through this process, but I appreciate it, Marvin. And secondly, we're dedicating the Veterans Welcome Center on the 9th at the airport. It's kind of a more or less private dedication. The airport's been kind of on the outside of it, but it's being dedicated by Spartan Nash, and so the veterans will have a place to go at the airport, and it's going to be a really nice addition to our airport. So, thank you.
Commissioner Womack?
Yes, I had one last question for Ms. Young. I'm very happy to see this for one reason is because I know the youth are having experiences with not only marijuana, under the influence of different pills and so many different new drugs, I could not name half of them. But when it comes to the medical marijuana use, and how do we know what level? Is there a certain level that they have to pass, or is it just the fact that it shows that they've used some marijuana? Because when I'm looking at a drunk driver, there's not just a litmus test. Because they get them out the car, they have them walk, and if they can walk or touch their nose or do the alphabet, we recently seen on television where a prosecutor was going through a drinking and driving test. Is that going to be different from medical marijuana? There's not going to be a test like that. It's going to be a saliva test, and then if so, what are the levels to know?
Right, so, and again, I think it's really important to look through a couple of different factors on that. One, medical marijuana is no different than marijuana for recreational purposes in how it actually impairs somebody's ability to drive. And so just because you're able to take marijuana for medical reasons doesn't give you the liberty to do that and then turn around and drive, just like it wouldn't be if you were on an opiate, for example, and that impaired your driving. So it's really important in law enforcement that you look at things in order as they progress. First, there's a stop typically because you're driving in a way that warrants a stop. Second, there's a detection that there might be some kind of impairment. And then third, there's a test to confirm that there's some kind of impairment, i.e. the sobriety test that you're talking about. So if any of those things don't happen, you don't get to the fact that there's a test. If you aren't impaired, if you're not driving in a way that's impaired, if you're not acting in a way that's impaired, we don't get to the point that we're testing you. But if we do get to the point that we're testing you, the answer is no, there is not a specific level of per se, now you're impaired like there is for alcohol. It didn't happen right away for alcohol either, and that actually took many, many years before we got to a point where we said 0.08 means you're under the influence of alcohol. So I don't know where the scientific community is going to take this. I think it's going to take us some time to really shake this out. This is a new community thing that we have to work through, but we do have to work through it because at some point, under the influence of drugs, you are a risk, a danger to the community, and we have to find out what that is.
I appreciate that because I really appreciate the fact that you said that to get to that point of that test, there has to be impairment.
Yep.
But I still want to know, when it comes to level, let's say if this person smoked marijuana the day before,
right,
2 days before, the night before, and then here at 7 p.m. the next day, they take some of his saliva, would they still find medical marijuana? Would they find marijuana in his saliva 24 hours after or 12 hours after?
You're getting past my comfort zone of answering the scientific question. The answer is yes, there is still some presence. There's different versions of the presence. Some of it is active and some is an inactive presence. But from a scientific level, I can't answer your question. Somebody can, though.
Okay, I'm gonna find that person because someone could be arrested for having that in their system and may not have even engaged that day.
They're going to get arrested for the impairment. They're going to get arrested for being impaired and driving. Whether we know exactly what's impairing them at the time of arrest or we don't, we know that they're acting in a way that indicates impairment.
Thank you, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Mast?
Well, some of those questions were kind of the same ones I had, Mr. Chair. I've gotten a copy of that report. We got it through the LRE Substance Abuse Oversight Board. That's scary. That is really scary, hearing all the things that are going on in Colorado and Washington.
Right.
But my question, and I guess that's where you're getting, so how long does marijuana need to stay in your system, or in your system, and I guess you can't answer that, but before it becomes impaired? So when they did these studies in Colorado saying the degree of impairment because of marijuana use just skyrocketed, how did they know that?
I don't want to try to answer that question. There's different levels that they're able to detect, and again, there's a way in your blood to tell if it's actually active or inactive to some extent, not 100%. So I can't speak to the scientific method they're using, but
because I think you can detect marijuana in your system for 30 days after ingesting it.
It's a substantial period of time.
But it goes down every day.
Right. It doesn't react the same way for every person either.
No, that's true.
But, so when they're saying those statistics, it's usually when they're at the level where they can say that they were impaired. But in the case of like a fatal accident, for example, there's no way to judge impairment except for the history of your driving and the fact that it was in your system. And a lot of those are fatal accident statistics.
That's right, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. You were on the hot seat.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm going to
you.
go ahead
You
and
did well.
conclude the miscellaneous, and I have a few things. The first thing I want to start with is our next meeting is being moved to Thursday, November 16th at 8:30 a.m. I know it's unusual for us to move a meeting. We're moving it so that we are off the Thanksgiving week, so anyone who is traveling is able to attend, both the public and other commissioners. And it is, again, not something we do regularly. It is a rare occurrence, but it is going to happen for our next meeting, so I appreciate you making a note of that and attending here Thursday, November 16th at 8:30. I know there could be potential conflicts with other meetings. We have that all the time as commissioners, so if you have another meeting and another engagement that you have committed to, please feel free to attend that. And those conflicts do happen, and we all have to make those choices on a regular basis when it comes to how we manage our meetings and demands as commissioners. The other piece I want to add is, overall as a county, in the time that I've been here as a commissioner, this is an incredibly well-run budget process. I want to stress that it's the responsibility of the county administrator and controller to prepare the budget and present it to the Finance and Physical Resources Committee meeting. I think what we have here is a county that is a very fiscally healthy county, and that's not something that I take for granted. If you follow the media at all, we have counties in the state that struggle, and we're not one of those counties. And we're not one of those counties because of the process that we have, and because of the staff that we have, and because of the commissioners that we have. So I think, considering we have commissioners that want to spend less, and we have commissioners that want to spend more, and we have a phenomenal team, and the effort that goes into making this happen is many, many hours of work. And there is plenty of opportunity for input, both individually with meetings with staff people, individually with the administrator. There were numerous opportunities to sit down with Wayman, with Steve, with other members in order to get input in to make this all come together. So with that, I am very pleased that we have approve this as a finance committee meeting. We will be this will go on to the board, and hopefully from there, we continue to have our process go through. But I am really glad that we're a part of a county that, again, is fiscally healthy. So with that, we are adjourned to our next meeting of Thursday, November 16th.
Yes.